Hey, welcome back, and we want to continue our theme that we started yesterday in verses 13 and 14 of Pharaoh owning everything in the land of Egypt now. The famine is continuing in chapter 47, and we'll see what the people have to do next. If you remember from the previous two verses, Pharaoh's got all the money. They had to pretty much give him everything to buy grain, and the famine continues. It says, verse 15, it says, the people of Egypt and Canaan ran out of money. All the Egyptians came to Joseph. Our money is gone, they cried, but please give us food or we would die before your very eyes. And Joseph replied, since your money is gone, bring me your livestock. I will give you food in exchange for your livestock. So they brought their livestock to Joseph in exchange for food, in exchange for their horses, flocks of sheep and goats, herds of cattle and donkeys, and Joseph provided them with food for another year. So they bring all the livestock. Now remember, this really is probably a pretty good deal for them in that the livestock were going to die anyway. Pharaoh's the only one with the food stores to be able to feed and take care of these animals. So it prevented the animals' death. But once again, it simply enriches Pharaoh further. In verse 18, he said, but that year ended, and the next year they came again and said, we cannot hide the truth from you, my Lord. Our money is gone, and all our livestock and cattle are yours. We have nothing left to give but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your very eyes? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. We offer our land and ourselves as slaves for Pharaoh. Just give us grains for me to live and not die. And so the land does not become empty and desolate. Okay, now, out of money, out of livestock, now they basically offer themselves and their land. In verse 20, so Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. All the Egyptians sold him their fields because the famine was so severe, and soon all the land belonged to Pharaoh. As for the people, he made them all slaves from one end of Egypt to the other. The only land he did not buy was the land belonging to the priests. They received an allotment of food directly from Pharaoh, so they didn't need to sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, look, today I have bought you and your land for Pharaoh. I will provide you with seed so you can plant the fields. Then, when you harvest it, 1/5 of your crop will belong to Pharaoh. You may keep the remaining 4/5 as seed for your fields and as food for you, your households, and your little ones. You have saved our lives, they exclaimed. May it please you, my Lord, to let us be Pharaoh's servants. Joseph then issued a decree, still in effect in the land of Egypt, that Pharaoh should receive 1/5 of all the crops grown in his land. Only the land belonging to the priests was not given to Pharaoh. So, some people might look at this and say, Joseph was greedy. This is not really Joseph. Pharaoh is in charge of all of this at the end of the day. Joseph works for Pharaoh. And if Pharaoh wanted to continue to be enriched, it was Joseph's job to continue this process. So he simply is carrying out what Pharaoh had instructed him to do. And so now Pharaoh has all the land. He literally owns the people as slaves. He has all of the livestock. He has all of the money. So Pharaoh is rich beyond his wildest dreams and is in incredible control. Now, if you notice something that Joseph set up here, it's almost a sharecropping situation. You keep so much of what you grow, you give so much of it to Pharaoh. It's very reminiscent of sharecropping in the United States back in the late 1800s and early 1900s when people would farm. They didn't own the land, but they would farm and then they would give a portion of their crop to whoever did own the land, and they could keep the rest. It was not a very good system, and we have gotten away from that, and that is great. We should have gotten away from that. Sharecropping was not a good system, but that's pretty much what it was. And so Pharaoh's now insanely wealthy beyond his wildest imagination. He owns everything that he sees, including the people, and God has a purpose behind all of this. And as we move through the rest of the book of Genesis and even into the book of Exodus, we'll see what God's purposes were here. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. See you soon.